and that we must never accept an argument that now is the time to let up, now is the time to double down. And it was in that context I was talking about capability, I was talking about training, munitions, etc. And this question of the financing that is necessary, and making the point that the finance that we were discussing yesterday will be loans that are repaid, as I said yesterday, not by Ukraine, but from those Russian assets. And we're already making great progress on this with our EU partners, with Poland. And I think the principle there is the right principle, and that money will therefore be available, and it's vitally needed at the moment. So we're making good progress on it. Thank you.
I kolejne pytanie.
Will Vernon, BBC. A question for the British Prime Minister. Donald Trump has suggested that Ukraine's use of Western-supplied long-range missiles to hit targets deep inside Russia was a mistake. He called it crazy. You gave Ukraine permission to use those weapons. So what's your response to Mr. Trump? And also, Prime Minister, just while I got this opportunity to ask you about grooming gangs, was the government pushed into announcing this audit into grooming after Elon Musk got involved? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. In relation to the first issue, you will understand why I won't engage in detailed discussion about capability in relation to our support for Ukraine. We are providing capability of many different types. We are cooperating with those in Ukraine and our allies that are supporting the defence of Ukraine, and that support goes across a number of fronts. So it is really important for me not to discuss the particular capabilities in question, nor to provide a running commentary on other allies. I think it's absolutely clear that the US is vital to the defence of Ukraine. I think we should pay tribute to the role the US has played, and we work with them on a daily basis and will continue to do so. On the second aspect of the grooming gangs, look, we are continuing to work with victims. This is something that's been going on for a very long time. Personally, I've been involved in this for well over a decade, so we'll continue to put that support in for victims. The absolute imperative is action, and action on behalf of victims, and that's always been the approach that has driven the decisions that I take. Thank you.
I poproszę o zadanie ostatniego pytania.
Catherine Forster, GB News. Prime Ministers, you've both been on something of a journey with your views on migration. You were both opposed to Brexit, but one of the things that people who voted for that were promised was control of our borders, which Britain has very obviously failed to get. Now, why should anybody believe that you can, in fact, smash these gangs, given we don't seem to have any effective deterrent, given the numbers of people who clearly would love to come and live in Europe and in Britain specifically? And just to pick up on that previous question, surely you will concede there is a link in terms of the timing between your action on grooming gangs and Elon Musk's interventions. Thank you.
To nie jest oczywiście moje zadanie, ale muszę powiedzieć, opierając się na faktach, że skuteczna walka z nielegalną migracją to nie są hasła, slogany, ani ksenofobia, tylko to jest zestaw konkretnych decyzji, które tutaj w Polsce podejmujemy. Mówiła Pani o tym, że jednym ze źródeł Brexitu była słabość rządów europejskich, w tym brytyjskiego, w zwalczaniu nielegalnej migracji. I że narracja taka antyeuropejska czy eurosceptyczna, nie tylko w Wielkiej Brytanii, była w dużej mierze ufundowana na tym przekonaniu, że liberalna demokracja, Unia Europejska nie są zdolne do dobrej odpowiedzi, nie potrafią przeciwdziałać nielegalnej migracji. Nie chcę być złośliwy. Wiecie dużo lepiej ode mnie, tam na Wyspach, że Brexit przyniósł różne konsekwencje. Ale z całą pewnością Brexit nie okazał się receptą na nielegalną migrację. W Polsce podjęliśmy bardzo twarde działania na naszej granicy. To jest trochę inna sytuacja, bo mówimy o granicy lądowej, ale dla mnie jest bardzo ważne i to jest lekcja, która moim zdaniem jest ważną lekcją dla całej Europy. I jest też ważną lekcją, powinna być ważną lekcją dla liberalnej demokracji wszędzie na świecie. Że jeśli nie chcemy oddawać tych spraw w ręce radykałów, ekstremistów, populistów, musimy znaleźć właściwe odpowiedzi, tak żeby nikt nie wątpił na świecie, że demokratyczne państwa są w stanie skutecznie bronić się przed nielegalną migracją. W Polsce te decyzje nabrały bardzo konkretnego kształtu. Zaostrzyliśmy politykę wizową, a przede wszystkim podjęliśmy decyzję o zawieszeniu prawa do azylu wszędzie tam, gdzie mamy do czynienia z masowymi i zorganizowanymi przez Białoruś i Rosję przekroczeniami granic. I dzisiaj w Polsce, ale też w Europie wszyscy widzą, że te działania przynoszą właściwe efekty. Dzisiaj polską granicę wschodnią przekracza 10 razy mniej nielegalnych migrantów niż wtedy, kiedy tych decyzji brakowało. I dlatego ja będę namawiał, robiłem to już od lat, ale teraz chyba mam więcej argumentów w ręku, żeby cała Europa poważnie potraktowała ten obowiązek. To nie jest tak, że to skrajna prawica ma monopol na dobre odpowiedzi w tej kwestii, bo to jest nieprawda. I nie jest tak, że ktokolwiek zwolnił z obowiązku jakikolwiek rząd, niezależnie od jego ideowych źródeł, z ochrony granicy i terytorium. To musi stać się taką jasną zasadą w całym świecie Zachodu, że ochrona, twarda ochrona własnej granicy i własnego terytorium, także przed nielegalną migracją, to jest święty obowiązek każdego państwa i każdego rządu. I ponieważ mamy do czynienia z wykorzystaniem migracji jako broni używanej przez reżimy, na przykład w naszym przypadku reżimy Łukaszenki i Putina, to musimy być też twardzi i zdeterminowani. Przepraszam za tę długą odpowiedź, ale chciałbym, żeby... Pamiętam tę debatę, byłem w to bardzo zaangażowany, w tłumaczenie w czasie referendum w Wielkiej Brytanii, że to naprawdę nie jest tak, że demokracja musi być bezradna wobec nielegalnej migracji. To jest nieprawda. Nie potrzebujemy radykalnych, takich skrajnych rozwiązań, żeby być skutecznymi w obronie własnych państw i granic i własnych obywateli. Czasami jest tak, że liberalna demokracja musi być twardsza niż to się często ludziom wydaje, że jest potrzebne czy możliwe. I my w Polsce na pewno będziemy tutaj bardzo zdecydowani.
Thank you very much, Catherine. Security is obviously the key issue that we're discussing this evening. It was the issue at the heart of our discussions earlier on today, and it's the focus of the presidency of Poland of the EU. Security obviously matters for defence, it matters for the economy, but it also matters for borders. And that is why this is such an important issue. And in relation to the United Kingdom, nobody but nobody should be making that journey across the channel in small boats. And it's our duty to provide serious answers to what is a serious problem. What we had from the last government was a gimmick, the Rwanda scheme. That cost £700 and only a handful of volunteers ever were removed. And a gimmick doesn't work as a deterrent. And we saw that very clearly with the Rwanda scheme, which is why we're determined to have a serious response to a serious challenge. And I don't accept the argument that is put to me that we can take down gangs who are terrorist gangs. I've done that myself when I was chief prosecutor. That we can take down gangs who are running guns or drugs. I've done that myself as a chief prosecutor. But the only gangs that apparently are untouchable and we can't take down are the gangs that are running this vile smuggling trade. I've never accepted that. Because I think a lot of the powers and techniques that we've used in relation to other gangs can be used for these gangs. And that's why we're taking measures to use what were traditionally counter-terrorism powers against these gangs. And in recent weeks, introducing our plans for a sanctions regime, which is modelled on what we do in relation to terrorists. And there's been a significant number of arrests in recent weeks as well. So I don't accept that that can't be done. And yes, it is a deterrent because these gangs are doing this to make money. If we break their ability to do that, that is a very important deterrent. And equally important is the deterrent of knowing that if you get to the United Kingdom and you shouldn't be there, you're going to be returned. And it needs to be emphasised that in the months that we've been in government, we've returned 16,400 people to their countries of origin because they shouldn't be in the United Kingdom. Record numbers on the flights, and that's the highest rate of return for over 10 years. So a serious problem requires a serious response, and a serious response is a deterrent. But a gimmick isn't a deterrent. That was tried, it didn't work, it was a waste of taxpayers' money, and we're not prepared to waste taxpayers' money on a gimmick that doesn't work. In relation to grooming gangs, look, the focus for me has always been on victims. This is unlike the Leader of the Opposition, who discovered this issue just a few weeks ago for the first time, having never previously mentioned it in Parliament in 8 long years. I've actually been tackling this and challenging this since the days when I was Chief Prosecutor in England and Wales. My focus has always been on victims, and we were already taking measures. The measures that are announced this week aren't in isolation. We're already taking measures on mandatory reporting, for example, that were one of the recommendations of a previous report. But as I said earlier, my focus remains absolutely on the action that we need to take to protect victims. There are very many outstanding recommendations from reports, including mandatory reporting, which was a recommendation to the last government, and for all they're now saying, they never actually implemented it. We're getting on and implementing it, and that is because we're focused on the victims. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dziękuję bardzo.
Thank you very much.
Dziękujemy Państwu. Dobrego wieczoru.
Thank you very much.